welcome and thank you for joining HempWool Insulation with hemp insulation manufacturers Hempitecture. My name is Jonnie Rezvani. I'm CGBG board president and your host for the presentation tonight. CGBG board member Kate Weigel is behind the scenes. Hi, Kate. Making this operation run. With that, we're going to move on to thanking sponsors that make all this happen. Our sustaining sponsors are Louisville's own Alpin High Performance Products, who've been long been a national leader in window technology, as well as 475 High Performance Building Supply, which is the company I work for. We provide building materials as well as free educational resources on our website. Then we have a big thank you to all of our supporters, supporting level sponsors. That is Boulder County, Tectonic Design Build, Cottonwood Custom Builders, EMU, Mitsubishi Electric, Shape Architecture, Caddis Collaborative, Rodwin Architecture, Hammerwell Builders, and Living Craft Design Build. We're very excited to get the amount of support that we have this year and can't thank them enough. You will find links to all of these supporters on our sponsor page at cgbg.org. Please take a minute to check out those sites and consider working with them as you design and construct your own projects. Many of these sponsors have exciting events planned with CGBG for this year, and we're looking forward to that. Keep up to date with us through social media, through the newsletter. All right, without further ado, I wanted to introduce our speakers tonight. We have fellow namesake Jonnie Pedersen, head of growth and operations for Hempitecture, and Max Sagdahl, lead sales technician for Hempitecture, are both joining us. And I'm going to pass it over to Jonnie, who is going to, let's see, I'll stop the share. And while you're tuning up your presentation here, I just wanted to mention, if anybody who was there for the happy hour last night, I have, hopefully you got a chunk of the hemp wool that they're going to be talking about today. If not, they graciously sent me a whole box of it here in my North Boulder office. And so please do just get a hold of me, stop by and get some. I've got plenty more. It is very cool. It smells great. I'm sure you maybe we'll talk about part of that, but off to you, Max and Jonnie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us, Jonnie, and the Colorado Green Building Guild. As Jonnie said, I'm Jonnie Pedersen. I am the communications director and growth, and I have Max Sagdahl, our lead sales technician, joining us today. All right, so I will go ahead and get started. So we are Hempitecture. We are focused on truly sustainable materials. Oh, let's see if it works now. Okay. So Hempitecture develops, manufactures, and distributes truly sustainable building materials, including our flagship product, HempWool insulation. We are a registered public benefit corporation. For those of you who have never heard of that before, a public benefit corporation is a corporation created to generate social and public good and to operate in a responsible and sustainable manner. We started back in around 2013 as a dorm room idea. And what kind of led to the development of Hempitecture was kind of looking at this growing landfill, one of the largest in the country, actually. Matty Mead, our CEO and founder, was at Hobart at the time. And he saw this landfill growing with building materials that would never decompose, they would never biodegrade, and those materials would just grow in massive forms. And so he was kind of curious to look into other natural materials that could be used for building materials, hence the biocomposite thermal envelopes, or as many people know it, is hempcrete. So we took this European building system that, at one point in time used to be part of US history. Industrial hemp in particular was used by our founding fathers. It was grown by our first president. It was actually required in the 1700s if you were a farmer to use industrial hemp as a rotational crop. And at the time, this was circa the 2018 2018 hemp farm bill. So people were like, oh, you're crazy. You must be smoking this stuff. Like, who would ever want to build with hemp? Maddie got this call from Idaho Base Camp, Maddie Gershader, and he was like, I want you to build the first hempcrete building here in Idaho. And that was what led to the further development of Hempitecture, the building of the first commercial use hempcrete building here in Idaho. Since then, we've completed about 20 plus projects to date. We've trained about 60 or so individuals on working with hempcrete. And although we've kind of stepped away from building with hempcrete, we still provide the raw materials for hempcrete building. Now we are with a fiber composite insulation. It is a one-to-one replacement for conventional insulations. It helps in the development of US raw materials, supply, and domestic manufacturing. And we also have a lot of research and development of future products and offerings. There is still a lot of excitement around hempcrete, so I just kind of wanted to show you guys this really fun project that our team did in Austin, Texas, called the Minka Project.
You're the contractor on the hempcrete, but you're also kind of the North American hempcrete guy, right? And you're actually selling these materials to other builders who are building with it. Tell me about this. What is this?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is a hempcrete wall system. It is a combination of industrial hemp, the wooden core of it,
Okay.
and a specialized blend of limestone.
Okay, so let me break that down. This is the bag of the hemp, and that's what this looks like. It looks to me almost like a wood fiber, like I was about to make OSB or particle board or something, right?
It looks just like wood chips, Matt.
And then this is for lack of a better term, a cement, right? A binder.
It is a binder, and it has a component of natural cement and limestone in it.
Okay, and you're mixing that in a big kind of industrial mixer on the job site, maybe 2 yards at a time, and then pouring it into a form to get this. It almost looks like rammed earth or some other type of kind of built up product. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And
so where we are now, we have officially opened our US facility as of February this year. This facility is powered by 100% renewable energy resources and is capable of producing over 20 million square feet of insulation a year. This factory located in Idaho is a blueprint that can be replicated regionally in hemp growing communities across the United States. Here's a little preview of how hemp is produced. Our non-woven manufacturing line uses something similar to like a low-grade oven, essentially. So it takes the 90% hemp fibers with a polyester binder and kind of spins them so that they fuse together, and then it's pressed down into these fiber batt insulation material. Climate action and buildings. So, as many of you who participate in the Green Building Guild understand that the building sector has some issues. The built environment is responsible for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. And the health impacts on people and the planet from outdoor air pollution and indoor air quality is of major importance to us, being a sustainable materials company. Something that we also really want to take into consideration is something called embodied carbon. Building materials require enormous amounts of energy to produce, transport, and install these materials into our buildings. And so our future deserves better and healthier options. There are two different types of carbon in buildings. The first is that embodied carbon that I had mentioned. The emissions from manufacturing, transportation, and installation of these building materials. And another common type of carbon that we hear of is operational carbon. So when we think of net zero buildings, and that's the emissions that are produced during the building's energy use. So your lighting, your appliances, different things like that. Climate action in buildings is really important because if we only focus on net zero energy consumption, then we're kind of missing the entire point of looking at where these materials come from, which is part of the process of considering in the embodied impact, where these materials are sourced from. In this graph, you can see that this is the amount of CO2 emissions if we only focus on the operational carbon, that blue line, which shows that the CO2 emissions would go way up regardless if those net zero energy buildings aren't creating any more energy or excess energy. It's because the embodied impact of, you can't take away the carbon impact of how those materials were produced in the first place after they've gone into a building. So considering those embodied carbon materials from the get-go will help reduce significantly the impact that we can have on the environment. So here is another great explanation of the embodied carbon impact of insulation materials. If you look here, high density spray foam can have a significant amount of CO2 emitted in just a simple wall panel. You go down the line and you can see that something like hemp fiber bats or hempcrete can actually have a negative embodied impact because of being a plant-based material and the amount of carbon sequestrated during its life. Here is another great research study done by Rocky Mountain Institute, RMI. Although recognized as a more sustainable material, mineral wool takes a large amount of resources, i.e. extraction and heat energy to manufacture the materials. And the embodied carbon impact is significantly higher than other insulations. So our solution is that these bio-based materials not only sequester carbon, but can have a negative carbon footprint. So here, again, is our solution, US grown and manufactured plant-based building materials that can address both the embodied energy and the operational energy, while at the same time creating local manufacturing and agricultural jobs, shortening the supply chain, and using materials that clean the soil, the air, and the water. I will let Max step in here.
Hey, everybody, and thank you very much, Jonnie. My name is Max Sagdahl. I'm the lead technical sales specialist here with Hempitecture. I've been with the company for going on 2.5 years now, and one of my first projects was that Minka hempcrete project that Jonnie showed us before. So yeah, it's been a very exciting journey to see how we've come from there, and now we have a very large-scale manufacturing facility here in Idaho. So thanks again for everyone to join here this afternoon, and yeah, I'll continue the presentation here. So one of the main benefits of our product is, as Jonnie was getting to, the embodied carbon and the carbon sequestration of hemp. So as you can see here, 1 acre of hemp sequesters 9.8 tons of carbon, which is essentially 2 to 3 cars taken off the road per year. And next slide, Jonnie. And with that hemp, we turned into HempWool, which is a natural fiber bat insulation composed of 90% hemp fiber. The other 10% is a textile polyester fiber, which acts as a binder for the material. And we have, our new manufacturing facility here in Jerome, Idaho, with a couple of locations of warehouses we'll get to later. So why hemp wool? Number one, hemp wool is very safe and healthy for your home. There is no additional VOCs, added toxins, or chemicals used during the extraction, processing, or manufacturing process. It is completely safe to touch, handle, and install. And it's also a very high performing material. So it's about R3.7 per inch. It also fulfills the full cavity of your stud bay so that there will not be any slumping or sagging in the material, leaving any thermal bridging. All right, next slide, Jody. All right, and right now we offer a couple of different SKUs for building, mainly tailored towards residential, but we start out with an R7 that is 2 inches in depth. We have 2 different widths for every SKU here. One's going to be a 16-inch on center, and the other is 24-inch on center, 2 standard framing widths. Our 2x4 insulation is R13, and you can see here prices on the right, so that's $1.19 a square foot. Our 2x6 material is R20, $1.69 a foot, and currently we used to offer a 7.5-inch depth material, but our manufacturing line is working on how to make that a little bit more efficiently, so we have that currently paused. But one great thing about HempWool is that you are able to multi-layer the insulation. So although we don't have a 7.5-inch, we can use a layer of the 5.5-inch and the 2-inch to accommodate that, or a couple of layers to the 3.5, whatever, what have you. So, all right, and just as of last week, we have onboarded 2 more warehouses throughout the U.S. So our main facility is located in Jerome, Idaho. We have Loveland, Colorado, North Lima, Ohio to serve the Northeast over there, Knoxville, Tennessee, Fife, Washington, and I believe we are soon to add a Reno, Nevada location. So we're getting a little bit more of a footprint, a little bit more regional access for everyone out there, which is very exciting. All right, and here is our technical data sheet. We can definitely send this out in a follow-up email for everyone here. It is soon to be updated. We are currently sending out for ASTM E84 testing, sound testing, and everything else here. So we'll have a new and an updated technical data sheet, hopefully by midsummer here. All right, and some exciting news. As I said before, so HempWool does not have any added chemicals, fire retardants, VOCs. We have the ability with our new manufacturing line to add a fire retardant to our line. And we have sent out some basic testing right here, which you can see a flame spread index of 10, smoke develop index of 110. This would get us into a class A classification for insulation, meaning it is fire retardant and it is up to code regarding fire retardant, excuse me.
Something to note on that too is that we have partnered with University of Idaho's College of Natural Resources to find this natural fire retardant agent to add to our line, and it is VOC free and red list ingredient free.
But our CIO, Tommy Gibbons, was able to partner with the Oak Ridge National Laboratory over at the University of Tennessee. And the ham test chamber is a heat, air, and moisture chamber where essentially they're able to test the elements of a wall assembly. And, we had the opportunity to use our material and test it against, conventional insulations that were out there on the market. And I don't know if we have the data on the next slide, Jonnie.
We don't yet. I think we should actually have that research out here shortly. But they kind of, in the split wall test, they compared fiberglass to the HempWool, just to kind of see how it did in the humidity, temperature, and heat flux sensors. And the HempWool side had less energy escape through the walls. So that case study should be available here shortly as well. Oops. No video wanting to play. Keep going, Max.
All right. So in addition to HempWool, which is our flagship thermal insulation, we are planning to offer additional insulation, and one is going to be plant panel here. Is going to be a rigid exterior insulation can be for new builds or retrofits. It is essentially similar to a Gutex wood fiber board, if you guys are familiar with that. And then additionally, we are also, next slide, Jonnie. Along with an exterior insulation, we are currently offering Plant Pad, which is a current underlayment replacement, which is very exciting. This actually just came out about 2 weeks ago. The guys have down at the facility just manufactured this about 2 weeks ago. So VOC free, it is tested up to 8 pounds, so it's very comparable to the foam padding you'll see out there underneath the carpets in Home Depot and what have you. And then lastly, we are working on a blow-in insulation. So that is a very common question we get, is if we offer a blow-in or plan to offer a blow-in insulation. With funding from NYSERDA, we do plan on opening a facility in the state of New York within the next 16 to 18 months. And the primary focus of that facility will be to create a blow-in product. All right, and so how do we install hemp insulation? We're going to have our CEO and founder, Maddie Mead, give a nice demonstration on how to put this in our walls.
Today we are on site in Los Angeles, California, working with our new product, HempWool. HempWool is a high-performing fiber batt insulation product. It's made of 92% industrial hemp. It can be cut and placed into your stud band to insulate your thermal envelope, as well as insulate from the down. So over here, I'm going to show you the basic technique of installing Hempitecture HempWool. We've already got this one pre-cut. What we're going to do is whatever size stud bay measures, we're always adding a ½ inch. HempWool is a pressure fit insulation system. You lean it up, press it in, smooth out the sides. So I'm going to show you the basic technique. Always start at the bottom so you're not leaving any gaps. We really want to get one side to where you like it. Then you can take your other hand while holding and supporting the panel and kind of pop it in to the stud bay. Once that's popped in, you can see that it's protruding past the framing plane. You want to be able to smooth that out. The best way to do that is just take your hands and rub them down the side of the panel. And just like that, we've got HempWool installed. We're going to put in this top piece to finish it. Just as we were adding a ½ inch to the stud width, we're also adding a ½ inch from the top of the panel to your block. So it's a pressure fit, snug system. Sometimes you have wiring and plumbing in the walls. With HempWool, you have to notch around them. So on the back of this one, you can see we've already notched for this wire that would typically, if we just put this HempWool over it, it would hold it out, make it bowed out. Now it ultimately affect the drywall or whatever finish you're going to put on. So we have this notch here, line it up, place that in, smooth it out, and you're on your way to having a healthy, comfortable, non-toxic, high-performing home.
All right, thanks, Maddie. You won't see too many people installing insulation in shorts, t-shirts, and no gloves. So I think it's pretty cool to know that. All right, so where can you install hemp insulation? So it is a one-to-one replacement for conventional insulations such as fiberglass, mineral wool, rock wool. So it can go in subflooring, it can go in wall assemblies, ceilings, attics, crawl spaces. So anywhere you can think to put insulation, HempWool can get in there. And here's a great shot of a wall assembly here. You can see the HempWool insulation as the interior thermal insulation with a layer of that Gutex wood fiber board for the rigid exterior insulation. And that is soon to be Plant Panel, our rigid exterior insulation. All right, so a couple of tools we use to cut HempWool. One is going to be that hand insulation saw you see to the left. Works just fine, a little bit more labor intensive. But that picture on the right with the grinder and a metal cutoff wheel, that's our tool of choice. That is going to zip through the installation, the easiest and the most efficient. So that is our main tool of choice. You can also use a table saw. We recommend actually flipping the blade in reverse. Essentially, with the hemp wool, the hemp fibers are so tough. The more teeth in a blade or a saw tends to rip more of the insulation as opposed to cutting the material. So the grinder with the metal cutoff wheel is the way to go, especially from personal experience. All right, and yeah, here's a couple of great shots of our some of our customers. Very pet friendly. It's always great. We do receive photos of cats and dogs and you know, hanging out, kids hanging around on the installation. So it's very, very cool to see all of our supportive customers here. And I think I'm going to pass it back to Jonnie here.
Thanks, Max. Well, so as Max said, this is some folks that sent us their shots of using hemp wool in their home. Their dogs absolutely love to lounge on it. But I also just kind of wanted to add some further information that we've been coming across that might be useful for y'all in the grand scheme of things. There's a bunch of different research and incentives for energy efficiency improvements through the Inflation Reduction Act and beyond. Let me see here. All right, so the first and foremost is the Inflation Reduction Act, a resources database. This is something that I came across recently. This database is intended to serve as a resource hub for non-federal actors looking to understand and access climate provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act. I will be sharing this presentation with Jonnie to share with you all so you can access these links a little better. But the Inflation Reduction Act, you know, is going to be very state and city based. So there will be different incentives that you see come out in different regions, different locations for your city, your state. So just, it's always good to stay tuned. I'm sure the Guild is also super on top of that for y'all out there. Another great space to start just learning about the Inflation Reduction Act as a whole is checking out whitehouse.gov. You know, it provides the information about the White House's efforts to promote clean energy and reduce greenhouse gas emissions through the Inflation Reduction Act. But that also provides details on incentives for families to upgrade their homes with energy efficient improvements such as insulation, heating, and cooling systems. I think right now, the only one that I know of for sure for the year 2022, even though we just passed tax season, is about, I think it's about $1,400 on a rebate for those energy efficiency improvements that you can access. And I think in the coming months, we'll start seeing more of these incentives come out. So 2023 should be a great year for that. The Energy Star also provides information on federal tax credits for energy efficient home improvements. You know, it outlines the eligibility requirements, the amount of the tax credit, and the expiration dates for each category of qualifying improvements. This page also includes links to additional resources and guidance for homeowners or home builders who want to take advantage of the tax credits. Renew America's Nonprofits, for those of you who work with nonprofit organizations or also just helping rebuild. The Renew America Nonprofit Program is part of the Biden-Harris bipartisan infrastructure law as the Energy Efficiency Material Pilot Program, as they seek to reduce carbon emissions and lower utility costs at buildings owned and operated by 501c3s. Nonprofits, allowing critical funds to be redirected to mission-focused work. So we have done some great projects with Habitat for Humanity, for instance. So it's just really exciting to see that these incentive offerings extend beyond just homeowners, but into other organizations that really need these energy efficiency improvements. The Better Building Initiative, the Better Building Solution Center is a resource for building owners and operators to find energy efficient solutions for their buildings. It offers case studies, best practices, and technical assistance to help organizations reduce energy consumption and save money. And also just additional resources to learn more about healthy and carbon smart materials. I am a huge fan of the Healthy Materials Lab out in New York, part of Parsons New School. If you're interested in learning more about the history of industrial hemp for building and also just in America as a whole, they have some really great podcasts. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Rocky Mountain Institute, they have some incredible toolkits, just research going on about embodied carbon in the built environment as a whole. Chris Magwood, if you follow him on LinkedIn, he's always posting about all the different research that they're conducting. So it's been a really wonderful opportunity for me to learn about how we can make an impact as a building material manufacturer. And this is a new one that I came across recently for many of you who are really passionate about green building and carbon smart building. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, put out a RFI, request for information for sustainable marketplace and environmentally preferable purchasing program. This is actually due on May 1st, which I believe is Monday. So again, these links will be part of the presentation that Jonnie can share with all of you. But if you're interested, they are really interested in hearing from, not only manufacturers, but builders, architects, designers. If you own a green building material store, they want to hear about, what incentives can be created, keeping these embodied carbon materials top of mind. And that is it for our presentation. Thank you all so much for being here. And we will open the floor up to questions now.
Well, thank you both very much. And that was it's very interesting. You said, we must be on top of it. We're actually not on top of it when it comes to the IRA stuff. And I really appreciate some of those links. I was just thinking to myself, once you send me those, we should start up a page, probably, Kate, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. We need that sort of resource listed on our site, because that would be super helpful.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. It's still so new for so many places. I know out here in Seattle, they're still kind of like developing these kind of conversations. I went to this really cool talk in Vancouver. I mean, this is like the dream of what we would do here in the States. But they were offering like up to $40,000 in rebates depending on how carbon negative you're building. And they're using the beam calculator tool to adjust for that and kind of keep track of that. So it's awesome to see that we're starting to see these incentive offerings. And so that only just further lends to the case of using these types of materials in our buildings, right? Is because there is funding for that and an opportunity to share that with clients, or if you're a homeowner, home builder yourself, to like think about, ways you can get rebates and different incentives from the government.
So we do have a couple questions that came in. First off, we got Tammy. Hi, Tammy. Hemp and polyester. So talking about the polyester binder in there. Tammy's wanting to know about the sort of end of life. Is it compostable? What is the thoughts about sort of, you guys have thought about a lot of the full cycle of it. Like what are the thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Currently, we are using the polyester fiber is not compostable. However, the other 90% of the insulation is compostable, which is far more than pretty much every insulation out there on the market. So we are going to research into alternative binders. So who knows, maybe in the next couple of years, we do find an alternative that is a little more sustainable and compostable, but right now that 10% is not.
Yeah, and I find just in terms of, I think one of the things that makes this a one-for-one replacement is that springiness, which I imagine is brought to us by that binder. Is that what creates the springiness, or is that?
Yeah, it creates that springiness and rigidity to help that friction fit system for the installation.
The next one we have is Eric. I'm a carpenter in Denver and find it difficult to convince my GC to use innovative, sustainable materials. How do you recommend convincing them to step away from the familiar and do something new and sustainable?
That's a great question. that is definitely something we come across a fair amount because there is just a lot of hesitancy on using newer materials in the built environment because, you know, you have warranties or, you know, this is your company on the line. Max, do you want to speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, and I think, right now, we're in the process of, finishing up our testing as far as fireproofing, sound, compression. Um, Basically, we're getting ready to create an EPD and an LCA for our materials. And I think as soon as we have that documentation, it'll help, ease that unfamiliarity with the material to general contractors or architects, installers, specifiers. And I think additionally, since we just added that warehouse in Loveland, Colorado, having it be a little bit more accessible to those general contractors in the area is going to be huge. Because, if they're not familiar with the product and, haven't seen it, felt it, touched it, it may be difficult to pull the trigger on using a new product. So I think with the more regional access to that, it'll be a great opportunity for those general contractors in the area. And Eric, I've noticed your emails coming through the inbox as well. And if you ever need some samples, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to send those general contractors some samples.
Yeah, I think just in general, having worked in pondered that question myself for a long time with my company, ultimately, well, two things. One is that we as architects and builders, it's our name on the line, and people are hesitant to change often. And so because of that, I find it really is so very, an in-person industry. As much as we do stuff like this online and whatnot, it ends up always being in person. I got to touch it, I got to see it, I got to feel that it works and it makes sense. And that I think is more than anything, we've always seen as a company the biggest traction when we just get out there and let people kick the tires on it, and try it out. And otherwise people are going to continue to think of something that's out there and that they've never seen and just doesn't work. That's why we hope to see you guys down here sometime for an in-person event, at some point during the year. And if you do, we'll be there. But I think that's always the best way.
Yeah, I believe we're going to try and make it out to a couple of those conferences in the fall that you hooked us up with, Jonnie. So
Great.
we'll have more updates on that if you guys are interested in meeting us in Colorado this fall.
Great. I have a question. So I don't think you mentioned, where's your hemp grown at this point? Where's it coming from?
Great question, Jonnie. Right now we have a partner, IND Hemp. They are located in Fort Benton, Montana. So they're about 600 miles away. So we have a very regional supply chain for hemp. And with IND Hemp, they've invested $10 million into equipment in order to be able to harvest and process that industrial hemp. So we do have a lot of people that reach out to us and say, hey, I have 50 acres of hemp. Can you guys buy it? Not quite that easy. We do need the hemp to go through a decortication process. What that does is essentially strips the outer fibers of the hemp stalk from the inner core. And we use the outer fibers in our manufacturing process for the HempWool insulation. And then the inner core can be used for hempcrete, animal bedding, and other various industries, excuse me.
Great. Yeah, no, that is a good point to make. I've heard the same thing, being like, hey, can we grow some hemp in the backyard and put it in the walls, and that decortication factor is a big one. We got a new question in from Mel. I understand you're developing blown-in hemp insulation. What will be the difference between the raw hemp product that's being used in the hempcrete and the blown-in product? I'm looking for a loose fill hemp insulation to use between a double brick wall system.
Yeah, so we're pretty early in the R&D stages for the fiberfill, the blow-in insulation. But one thing that'll make it different, at least off the top of my head, is we'll treat it with that bio-based fire retardant. So we'll have a fire retardant capacity to it other than just putting the raw fibers into the wall.
Yeah, and it will be 100% plant-based too. So instead of having that polyester binder, it will be just the industrial hemp fibers. The difference between the hempcrete and the fibers too is that the hemp core or the hemp hurd kind of looks like little wood chips, and whereas this blown in will kind of just use the fibers that we use in the hemp bats. Our manufacturing line, actually, we've tried to eliminate as little waste as possible too. So we are kind of like any dust that comes off or any fibers that come off of the line, we're essentially just sweeping that material back up and putting it back into the line to get used in those fiber bats. And essentially this blown in insulation manufacturing facility that we're developing will also have kind of that zero waste mentality of utilizing those fibers in the blown in.
All right. And with that, if there's any other questions, please do let us know. We got their contact information on the screen here. And like I said, we recorded all this. We'll have it up on the site. So if you want to share it with anybody, and also please do get in touch with me if you want some of these samples that they sent. They're all here in my office in North Boulder. Swing by when I'm around and let me know. I'll happy to give them to you. And thank you again so much for joining us. It's good to see you guys, and we'll call it there. Class will get out early if there's no more questions. There we go. All right.
Well, thanks again for having us. We
Yeah.
love what the guild is up to. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to Max and I if you guys have any questions. I'll share this presentation so that you guys have access to those resources and links that we shared during the presentation. But thank you all so much for being here.